Good evening and welcome to the August 5th, 2019 planning meeting of the Pine-Richland School Board. Please join me for Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Thank you. Mr. Lyons?
Present.
Ms. Mizbach?
Here.
Mr. Kashani?
Here.
Dr. Campbell? Mr. DiTullio?
Here.
Ms. Goebel?
Here.
Dr. Mihalik?
Here.
Dr. Meyer?
Here.
Mr. Moy? Thank you.
Any correspondence?
The board received official notice from the Department of Education acknowledging the receipt of Plan Con Part K project refinancing as attached.
Thank you. We'll now have our first recognition of visitors. If anyone would like to address the board, we'll also have a recognition at the conclusion of tonight's meeting. Item 1.04 is a motion to approve the minutes for the July 15th combined July meeting and the July 18th Building and Grounds Committee meeting.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2.01 is a motion to approve the personnel supplemental and transportation items as attached, including the appointment of Rachel Septak.
Yeah, perfect. Well said.
Second.
Any discussion?
We need a second.
We need a second.
Second.
Oh, did you say
second?
Yeah.
Chris is adamant.
Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Ms. Septak.
We actually spoke earlier today, and it's not often that we have teachers come to a meeting where they're being approved. And she said, this is a huge moment and something she's been pursuing. And every teacher who finally gets that contract, maybe substituting or long-term sub, and it's sort of like, okay, now we can dig in. And she participated as long-term sub last year in our PR Academy. She's someone who knows, again, the mission, vision, values, as we talked about in the last meeting. And she's just one example of the many that we're bringing on board that we feel really good about. So congrats. Time for ice cream.
Yeah. Thrilled to have you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out tonight.
Bye.
It's pretty cool. You leaving? Yeah.
Better than Netflix.
I think.
Fantastic. Item 2.02 is a motion to approve Kathy Bilanowski for sabbatical leave as attached.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2.03 is a motion to reject the bid for the varsity girls softball field. Our bid was received and none of them were found acceptable. Can I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Anything to add from the administration? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2.04 is a motion to approve, in accordance with Policy 613, work to be performed by athletic field pros through the Co-Stars program, the drainage project.
Second.
Is there any discussion here? All those in favor say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2.05 is a motion to approve the disposal of kitchen equipment by Hobart Corporation at an estimated cost of $500 in accordance with Policy 622.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2.06 is a motion to approve the repairs and maintenance of the Pine-Richland High School planetarium as attached.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? I do want to thank the administration. Dr. Campbell had tipped me off to it as well. I know he read it with interest immediately, and I read it as well. It is a detailed timeline, how we've come to be in possession of such great equipment to provide opportunity for our students, and what the plan is moving forward. So the clarity there is outstanding, and I know Ben felt the same way. So
It's Dr. P. and his team.
thank you all, and thank them. All those in favor?
Yes.
Say yes. Opposed? Motion carries. And item 2.07 is a motion to approve student attendance and application of the Student Discipline Code for the Pine-Richland High School Band to travel to Louisville, Kentucky to participate in the Kentucky Derby Pegasus Parade.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Turn it over to Dr. Miller for strategic plan updates.
So we have two tonight. The main one is the next one on the student information system and financial information system. But this one, just wanted to get on the agenda and share briefly. We have Diane Bucknam here, as is fairly typical of her to attend meetings. But this is one of our strategic actions this year, where with 5 key partners, we are really focused on a somewhat templated quarterly meeting process. And in that template, we're talking about how that particular company fits within the organization, where those connections are. What is sort of the state of affairs? What's the progress? What are the measures or areas of focus? And how can we talk about those? What are the initiatives or things in front of us in a particular year? For Sodexo, that's been in place for a number of years. And I would say within the last few years, the quality of that meeting, the consistency of the meeting, I would say the alignment in dialogue and focus is something that has really increased and expanded. And so what we're trying to do is take that same concept and apply it to STA. To take the same concept and apply it to ComDoc IST, which is our managed print copy service, and to Gehring, Rudder, and Beam. And a real opportunity is with Kelly Staffing, Kelly Substitute Services. One of the biggest challenges we face and others face is substitute staffing for positions, and how do we provide continuity and fail-to-fills. And so we see that as a real opportunity with Kelly Services to not necessarily fix a challenge, but rather to address it more strategically and then monitor the results. So one component of these quarterly meetings is coming to sort of consensus clarity on what are those high-level measures. So I'll share food service as an example. These are not the only measures, but these are sort of the high level, and this was discussed at the board SLT workshop in that particular subgroup. So things such as cost per meal with comparisons, number of meals served and percentage participation by building in total, amount of a la carte sales. Sodexo has a third-party independent food and physical safety audit conducted, so results of that accredited independent audit with comparisons to others to see how we perform. Food service annual net position, and that's from the audited financial statements, and then overall satisfaction, which we pull from the stakeholder survey. So again, there are many more details, but that's a set of 6 measures that in that particular, and we got a bazillion things happening, but those are 6 example measures that would fit. And so at our quarterly meetings, one of the components is let's look at those measures. For STA, as an example, we know that staffing levels, FTE, matters. So meeting the service level agreement in the contract, having the correct number of drivers for routes, and having an appropriate depth of bench in order for the same substitute reasons. So again, this is something that we've already begun to see some positive benefits. And as we get through the first couple of quarterly meetings, I believe that we will find that kind of clarity and rhythm with each of the major key partners, and that'll be good for us as a district. So I'll take any questions. Just wanted to include enough there to publicly share this is what it is and let that sit on the agenda.
As you know, selfishly, as a board, we should all appreciate what an advantage this process is when it comes time to look at contract renewals. For one, you're not in a position where complaints or just issues not getting addressed rise up, and now you're doing an RFP or looking at renewing a contract, which is a lot of work for staff and the board, so they can be addressed in a more effective way. And if they do need to be addressed, you have a sort of documented history of what needs to be addressed, why do we think this action can solve it. So it definitely puts us in a great footing, most importantly, to get the services that we need and want at a cost-effective way. But it also helps us to look at those contracts because we have documentation and input from those who are there witnessing those services. So it's fantastic. It makes our job easier. I like those things.
Okay, and then the next one, later in the agenda, it's there as an information item, but Mrs. Kirk and Mr. Stobin are just going to give a brief sort of pseudo presentation, really just a high-level review of where we've been, where we are now, and then the board action that will be requested at the August 19th meeting.
Thank you. This presentation is an update from one that stemmed from the operational services presentation last month. I'd like to begin by thanking everybody who was involved. This presentation is a culmination of a lot of work and going in, and there are over 60 individuals helped develop this and going through the review process. The student and the financial information system are by far one of the most important things that drive information in the district, and there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of opportunity for systems be integrated, and when the gears are not functioning properly, as we've experienced with our current system, it can grind down, and keep with the analogy, a lot of the data and the workflow. So this is an exciting opportunity. We're not going to go through every slide, but again, the reason why we're changing is because our needs and the capabilities of systems have changed over the years, and it has made sense to look at the potential opportunities and options out there. So continuing from the evaluation into the implementation and talking about the requirements for the system. Again, making sure that we have a system that will support the district's needs. And we've laid out some things that we felt are important to help us determine whether or not we were successful in the migration of systems. And both the student information system and financial information system have a lot of overlap with the requirements, but are used drastically different. And the recommendation to move forward with Tyler Technologies is the district's financial information system, and Sapphire for the student information system will be for consideration at the next board meeting. Danny, do you want to go through the?
One of the areas that we discussed at the committee meeting was what are some of the data points to know if we're successful after we switch systems. So on the student information side, again, we're looking for increased access to the data, ensuring that we have an improved response for support. Online registration is something that we've talked about for many, many, many years while we've been here. In-depth reporting and analysis. Currently our reporting is very complicated, and it doesn't necessarily pull together everything that it is that we need. And then making sure that we have access to the data report cards. On the financial side, essentially we're really looking to streamline our process. We also want to make sure that the reporting that we have in the system is able to be manipulated, but also compliant with everything that we need to report to PDE for regular, annual, and quarterly reports. A primary area of focus for us has been in HR and payroll. Our payroll system currently is very, very complex. So whenever we have turnover in that position, it is very, very difficult to make it function. It seems like it should be easy, but it really is not. With the new system, whenever we have looked at it, it is very straightforward, not only for our current staff and as we build everything from scratch with all of our reference tables and we build it, but again, moving forward, we also have to understand that, circumstances change, staff members change. We need to be able to adapt to that and make that easier to make those changes moving forward. And we also want to make sure that we have better tracking of some of our data. So there are a number of features in the new financial system that will actually make the Human Resources Department able to send out periodic notices automatically based on certain end times of things, such as an example for clearances. If clearances are set to expire at a certain point in time, the system will automatically send that out to those staff members via email. We're able to track that on our end and be able to identify those reports, but it will also increase the efficiency by getting that information out on a real-time basis.
Again, just to reiterate, the student information system, just having the ability for parents to have access to all the features of a mobile-friendly interface will be a huge benefit to our parents, and just all the additional features and professional development that will go into making sure our teachers can utilize the new tools effectively. And looking at the other exciting aspect is looking at our workflows. And just because we've done something in eSchool for a decade in that manner does not mean that that process has been refined, evaluated, and reviewed. It's done that way because that's how we do it. And it's definitely going to be an opportunity for us to kind of revisit the way we do things and improve those make things more efficient. So moving forward, our transition timeline include after approval, starting transition implementation process, which will have us migrating our data over the next few months with a goal of start the testing of the transition of data in the winter months, and when the teachers return from Christmas break, we'll start the professional development aspect with the training and the actual, what they call the sandbox environment, so that we can look at what the new environment looks like before we have to use it next year. So the go live date will be July 1 for the student information system.
On the financial information side, we're really primarily looking at trying to ensure that the data on our end is cleaned up before we do a transition over. There are certain pieces and modules that we'll be able to transition over, whether it be at a certain quarter break or even as we go along. So for example, with financial reporting, with fund accounting, most of that stuff should be relatively easy to move over. We'll be able to kind of create that so that that system will exist, and we'll be starting to build it, but we'll be able to use our current one as well, and then ensure that everything gets transitioned. For example, even with fixed assets, many years ago, we used to have a fixed asset module. We still have it, but it's basically empty, and we manage everything in Excel. Those are the types of things that we'll be able to move over quickly. In terms of HR and payroll, we have to be careful with the employee data as we pull it over. We need to make sure that the information that's in there is not only accurate, but able to be transitioned easily. So we're going to be doing a lot of testing behind the scenes of sample employees, seeing how their demographic information pulls over, all the user-defined fields and how those pull over. Whenever we do set up a transition schedule with the software vendor, we'll obviously keep you notified as we go along. Typically with these types of conversions, we have to run multiple payrolls in multiple systems so that we can test them back and forth and make sure that they're both working. Also, another piece of the puzzle is that we'll be moving to a new job applicant center. So through our employment portal that we used to have years ago, the newer system that we currently have is tied directly to eFinance, so we'll need to move to a new system there. Mr. Kenny and his team will be looking at a few different options with that, and we've talked with Tyler. They have availability to be able to work behind the scenes with any of the third-party providers. So we're going to look to that as well, and we want to make sure that that's a seamless transition for any of the staff members that would like to apply for positions here, so that we don't have any downtime between the two systems as they go. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you both. Finance, Mr. Kashani.
Well, the excitement here pales in the comparison of the recommendation of those two new systems. Not much going on in finance for the regular meeting. We're going to be approving some financial reports and some accounts payable, and there won't be any budget transfers because they're not permitted until October. I believe that's it.
Thank you. Mr. DiTullio, Buildings and Grounds?
Mike's good. That's all right. So at the regular meeting, we're going to have several recommendations to award bids. The first one, item 5.01, will be a motion to accept bids for the contract for the toilet room renovations at Richland Elementary. That data will be provided prior to the meeting. Item 5.02 will be for board consideration at the meeting to approve the new window installation at Richmond Elementary. Again, that detail will be provided. Item 5.03 will be for our consideration to approve the roof repair work that will be done. Most of that repair is going to be, most if not all, will be because of the storm damage that we sustained earlier this year. Item 5.04 will be the purchase of a new tractor and a motion to approve that. We do have that information in. That's a tractor for about $28,000. And although that seems like a lot of money for a tractor, if you bought a tractor, that's not the right word. If you purchased a tractor or looked at them, that's not so great. Bought, I can make up one.
Mr. Stovner does it.
Do you prefer that one? Was that
He was a cog in the wheel of that.
If you say it enough, they'll eventually add it somewhere.
Is Sean the one that came up with toilet room for 5.01?
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure about that. I just
Like, did we drop the phrase bathroom?
Apparently.
Okay. I'm just-
Clarity. Everything's about clarity.
I was just
Precision is like.
Wow, who knew buildings and grounds could be so much fun? Item 5.05 will be for consideration and approval for the purchase of a replacement box truck. Again, that data is not there yet. I'm going to motion that unless anyone has an issue with, I'd recommend everyone look at it, but I'm going to motion that we do consent agenda of 5.01 to 5.05 at the regular meeting. Look over all that data. If anyone has a question, we can pull it out, let Barb know. I'm assuming that would be the best.
Hi, Jeff. I want you to read them all.
I knew you would have all been there.
No, I guess I'll be okay with it. We'll let you pass.
And then item 5.06 is a review of the Buildings and Ground Committee meeting that we had on Thursday, July 18th, which was an off night, which was an intimate setting, to say the least. There was a few of us here, but it was a very good discussion on several fronts. We talked about the bidding process versus cooperative purchasing, and Mr. Zimmerman provided a flow chart, which is attached, that details kind of the thought process that we go through, the administration goes through when looking at, do we use co-stars, do we do a bid process? And it was pretty enlightening. We also talked about, do we use professional services, when do we use professional services and when don't we, et cetera, et cetera. If somebody from the administration wants to expand upon that. But it was a very good discussion. I thought it was helpful to me anyway on explaining why we use different processes.
I'll take a crack at it, and then Dana can fill in. So I thought it was an excellent meeting, and the sort of the crux for us is there are certain times when professional services are required, and it's based on the law or it's based on literally the specifications that have to be developed for a project, and so that needs to occur. What I thought was the more sort of oversight from a board's perspective and substantive piece is when a project is coming forward, we can provide the board with a clear rationale of why we're headed down the flow chart in this path or that path or with this consideration, and really talk about that. The second part of that is ensuring that when those services are needed, are we getting the bang for the buck? Are we quoted a reasonable or appropriate fee for whatever services it is that we're purchasing? And then, how do we hold accountable in a clear and ongoing way, whoever that, whether it's an architect or a project manager or whatever the service is, how do we hold them accountable for delivering the value that we need? So it's not so much about, I think as a benefit to this community, the board is fiscally responsible and the administration is fiscally responsible. We share conservative approaches to spending money and thinking about projects. And so how can we, as a project is being considered, bring that forward in such a way that we have clarity? And if there's not clarity, we get clarity, we do it early in the project. The other thing that came up around our capital funding plan, so the good news, so the positive, the strength is, we have a 10-year capital funding plan that breaks out all manner of projects. The negative is for the athletic projects, the report was constructed in 2016. The estimates that were put into the capital funding plan for those athletic-related projects were fixed at that time as an estimate, and we have no, prior to this upcoming year, when we do a little green loopy improvement, we've had no adjustment to that. So part of the frustration is a project may be quoted as X, it comes in at X plus 15%, and we're dissatisfied, all of us immediately, and it may be we're dissatisfied because we anchored to the wrong starting number. So we talked about that a bit, and as we get into finance and buildings and grounds and capital funding plan, maybe applying some sort of a factor, inflationary factor to the smaller things, but there are a few bigger projects in there that may be worth getting an updated, more accurate assessment so that we feel better about it. So again, many of the projects are smaller, but when we're talking about a green gym reconstruction into a 2-level facility, or if we're talking down the line at a shifting the orientation of the main gym in order to increase the seating capacity to 1,600 instead of what it is at 1,100, whatever the number is now. Those are big projects, and we need to feel good about, reasonably good about the number before we get there. So that came out of the discussion as well, which I thought was good.
I mean, to me, a case in point is you look at the softball field renovations. I think the bids came in, correct me if I'm wrong, 45-50 higher than what we budgeted.
Yes.
Which 45-50,000 is, you're talking a big rock, but it's also when you look at the percentage over what we were looking at, it's pretty
Correct.
significant.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we talked about with
Right.
the adjustments. The other thing about the meeting, and I know Ms. Kirk's going to talk a little bit about the meeting, but what, for me, when we go through these decision processes to spend the public's money on various projects, we can make decisions that seem like we can look at a project and say, well, that's an easy decision, right? Well, that's us as an individual, but when you're spreading it across all that, looking at the liabilities, if I want to hire Greg's contractor to fix my house because I think it's the cheapest price, well, that may be good for me, but when something happens, I'm the one personally responsible for that decision. When we do that with the school, we've got to think about the community and how we spent their money and then what the fallout is from that. So that whole decision tree, it seems like simple to an individual when you're looking at it through a tunnel vision, but when you look at it through the scope of the district, I thought the way that it was laid out in the meeting was very insightful.
And prevailing wage and the limitations on the scope of projects that our staff, even if they can do it, are allowed to do by law. So.
Correct. Yeah, the only other piece I was going to add was that when we had talked about some of the value add with the professional services, based on some of the complexity of some of the projects that we're looking at, I had some discussions with Gehring, Redder, and Beam, and Ms. Doherty, who that's her specialty, is actually dealing with construction litigation. And her and I had talked quite a bit about there is some benefit to having a third-party entity, such as an architect or an engineer, assist in the development of the specifications in order to reduce the liability on the school board and on the school district. Because oftentimes there are certain areas within, whether it be the specifications or the front end or back end documents with any of those construction projects, that you don't want to have fall through the cracks that could come back to you later and will cost you much more in legal fees after the fact. So she had some good pieces of advice, and then we rolled that into the presentation. So any of you that might have an interest, if you want to go through there, I tried to make it very detailed so that we could actually just use it as a reference piece moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you for the update, Greg. I mean, great point about the different modes that you think in individual versus for an organization, a position of governance. And if anybody needed more caution, keep in mind Gehring Renner and Beam is a mid-sized organization, and they have construction litigation specialists. So that should tell you all you need to know. Yeah. Academic achievement, Dr. Meyer.
Okay, it is a review of the Joint Academic Achievement Student Services Committee meeting that happened earlier this evening. So, do you have anything on
We just reviewed the gifted and or highly achieving in-depth program review as one point in terms of when we presented that, there were some misconceptions that we wanted to address, and we will certainly loop back with the PAGE organization to make sure the parents and the students who are being serviced by that program primarily are aware of what those misconceptions were and how we plan to deliver the recommendations to enhance and bolster the programming for our students. And the second piece was around student performance measures and how we plan to get at that, both looking at kind of culminating measurements that we have, as well as things that we're looking at formatively while students are here in terms of a dashboard to understand how we are working through and the connection that that has to our portrait of a graduate in terms of our promise to students within the areas that we would like to deliver by the time they leave us.
Why don't you roll right into student services, Dr. Meyer?
Item 7.01 is for board consideration at the regular August meeting, a motion to approve trip request to the WPL Championships for the 2019-2020 school year as an application for qualification. 7.02 is for board consideration at the regular August meeting, the motion to approve the trip request to PIAA State Championships for the 2019-2020 school year as applicable for qualification. And item 7.03 is also an information item. It is for board consideration at the regular August meeting. Motion to approve the attendance and participation of the marching band, dance team, color guard, and cheerleading teams at PRSD varsity football playoff games and cheerleading team at the PRSD boys basketball PIAA championship game should either team qualify. And just an item note, the recommendation of Mr. Lyons, we are going to group 7.01, 7.03 for consideration at the board meeting unless anyone objects.
I do have a question, if I may. Am I missing something? But we're approving, like I'm just looking at football, we're approving them to go to the state championship, but I don't see them in the WPIAL championship list.
I think because the WPIAL is local in Pittsburgh, so we don't do an overnight out of state, so it's typically not board approved for the football WPIAL. But if we go overnight if the distance is further, then we tend to get them board approved. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Item .704, it's an information item, approved in the March 2019, the Pine-Richland Athletic Hall of Fame honors and recognizes those associated with Pine-Richland's athletics who have experienced a significant accomplishment in their chosen sports. The establishment of the Hall of Fame coincided with a number of other events that were designed to celebrate Pine-Richland's 60th anniversary. Through these events, the community was provided opportunities to reflect on the past and look forward to the future. On Tuesday, July 9th, 2019, the Pine-Richland Hall of Fame Selection Committee met to review the submitted nominations. Based on the Hall of Fame bylaws, 5 nominees and 1 team were selected to be included in the 2019 Pine-Richland Athletic Hall of Fame.
Any comments from those who had Mark and Dr. P, you guys were on that committee?
I do not serve on the committee. I did, help with the development of the process, but then stepped away from the committee work. Sean Simmons, athletic director, is really taking the lead on the committee work. But Mr. Kashani did participate as well.
Yeah, it was very well done by Mr. Simmons, the way he conducted it and ran it, went over, reminded everybody of all the guidelines, the rules we had to kind of follow. We had 29, I believe, total nominees.
Correct.
And there was certainly a sense among the committee to honor the past in this first group, and it was quite hard to narrow it down to just 5 athletes in one team from the 29. But when the dust settled, though, I think everybody felt like the right choices were made. So it was fun. I was proud to be part of it.
So we'll be following up tonight's meeting with a district-wide communication, so the community is made aware, and you can see the dates. We will be advertising. Those interested in participating in the banquet will be invited to do so. There will be some costs associated with purchasing tickets there, but again, as we stated from the get-go, we think we can do a really nice evening that's professional and celebratory here at Pine-Richland to really showcase this beautiful district and schools and facilities, and at a price that is reasonable as well.
Thank you. Mark, thank you for your service there.
My pleasure.
Ms. Goble, personnel.
Item 8.01, it's an information item for this evening. There'll be a motion presented to approve a list of personnel action items next meeting.
Just as an update to the board, from a personnel perspective, obviously we approved a number of positions this evening. I will let the board know, though, we have had a run of late resignations in a number of positions across the district. So we're working diligently to get those filled and in time for school year to the extent that we can. But if you see a larger number coming in on the 19th than normal, most, if not all, of those are due to late resignations or retirements.
Is there a theme among the resignations, like a common denominator? Is it a certain subset of employee, or is it just across the board?
Just for example, we currently, I would say, have around 9 positions outstanding. 4 of those are in paraprofessionals. 1 is in the business office, 1 librarian, 1 psych service. We lost a school psychologist, and we have a counselor at the high school. So it's across different domains. Several of those are transitioning to other employment opportunities. Some of those are resignations because they're moving out of the area. It's a very mixed, much like it always is. And for instance, the paraprofessionals, it is sometimes a difficult position to recruit, but those also occurred late in July at the time of the resignation. So they're up, and obviously we have contractual obligations for posting length for both professional staff as well as support staff. So we're meeting those timelines, and principals are on the ball to try and get those ready for the beginning of school year, but there might be some outstanding as we move forward.
Yeah, and similar to our discussions in the past, we had one example where a para-educator, who's also a certified teacher, was hired into a long-term substitute teaching position, which then causes the backfill of the paraeducator position. So again, positive for that individual, and it just causes that next step.
Thanks. Christine, could you?
Yes. So item 9.01 for board consideration at the regular August meeting, which was already spoken of, but motion to approve an agreement with the Sapphire K-12 for the student information software as attached. And then the financial information software for item 9.02. At the regular August meeting for consideration will be a motion to approve an agreement with Tyler Technologies for the Infinite Visions financial information software as attached. And item 9.03, the strategic plan school start times. Dr. Pasquinelli? would you like to-
Yeah, again, we just want to keep the community updated. We've been sending updates through eBlast with our updated school start times. Hopefully, as parents, you've seen communications coming out at the building level too. So all the building principals are embedding some information related to school start times in their building summer updates to families as well. We are working on FAQ. It's in its final phase. We'll be sending that out this Friday for the community, and that's based upon the feedback we receive. So we send out the e-blast, we get some phone calls about certain questions or concerns. So we have gathered those questions, we have responses to those questions prepared, and we'll have that out sometime Friday.
And I would encourage board members to review those agreements if you have questions, to get those to the administration before we vote on them at our voting meetings. Under board business, I will just mention my thanks to board members for participating in the workshop that I was unfortunately not able to make due to family vacation this July. I know we had a good meaty agenda and good reports all around on the topics covered. I want to thank Dr. Miller for taking an hour out of his time Friday to bring me up to speed and talk about some of the board goals section, which would have been sort of our breakout as you guys worked one-on-one with administration, and also for taking the board self-assessment, which we appreciate. I think it's an important part of our annual calendar, and we'll reflect on that and talk about that at a later date in a little more detail as we work through board goals.
Did Dr. Miller tell you about all the items that are falling on you now since you weren't here?
That I feared that.
Yeah.
That's the rule.
I don't know if he ruled all that out to you, but it's quite lengthy.
No, just pieces at a time.
I have, any other board members have any updates or reports? Dr. Miller, please.
So first, special day. Any day that high school marching band camp begins is a pretty cool thing. Again, if you don't, when you work in schools and you hear the instruments for that first time, it's just, it is a different experience. It's pretty cool. 253 is the number this year in marching band, color guard, those associated with the band. So we're very, very fortunate to have excellent leadership. Mr. Scott and Mr. Stillwagon and the rest of the crew, but this is the beginning. And when they come back, band camp begins. Then we get going from there. This document, this labor of love, and you get a quarter if you can find typos or mistakes anywhere for every typo and mistake you find in this document, but. This will go out to the entire community. It is, when we talk about diverse opportunities, and you read through the opportunities available to the students in the Pine-Richland School District, it is just mind-blowing. So this is enjoyable reading, and it takes a lot to put all that together. Rachel does an incredible job. Back to school, there's so many things. So like 0 minutes ago or 2 minutes ago now, the e-blast about the Hall of Fame first class inaugural thing is already out. She was just waiting for us to get to that item. I mean, it just happens over and over again. So even the Hall of Fame, Rachel really instrumental in behind the scenes stuff that helps make that happen. So. Again, big day with 253 starting in the marching band. That's a really good thing. Fall sports at the varsity level will begin next Monday. Mm-hmm. There's some heat acclimatization type things happening for those that it's relevant this week, but we're getting ready to go. So exciting.
Mike wanted me to mention the back to school toolkit because it does.
It's my favorite email of the year.
Page. I think we might have a sound off.
Oh. that is a parent's dream. It has everything you could possibly want on 3 pages. It's a click away. It's excellent. Excellent.
That'll go out tomorrow.
I could click on that all day long.
What do you like more? Clicking on that all day long or talking about our vision?
Clicking on that all day long.
Although he has dreams of riding that new tractor.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that right?
That's true.
Nice.
That's excellent.
But it won't be green, so we can't sing the song.
Thank you for the updates. Great work, Rachel. Any other updates, reports? Second, recognition of visitors. Seeing how there is none, the board will adjourn to executive session to discuss real estate, school safety, and personnel. Thank you, everyone.
So, Dr. Miller, if I find a typo, who should I?